We will hear arguments in Roe against Wade. You may proceed.
Well, thank you, Canada, for premiering the film of Roe v. Wade. I'm Nick Loeb, the director. It means a lot to me that you guys are supporting this, and know that you're not alone. We're all here fighting with you side by side.
And with me today is Nick Loeb, who not only stars in the film, but also directed. Nick, we're honored to have you with us today. How you doing?
It's been good. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, I had the opportunity to watch the film last night. Your co-director there gave me a link, and I can say, as a filmmaker myself, I was totally blown away. I didn't really know what to expect. I had seen the trailer, but I really didn't know what to expect. Powerful, eye-opening, inspirational, kind of difficult to watch at times. But I really appreciated your work, not only as a director, but also starring in the film. Like, man, quite an accomplishment. So congratulations on that. How have screenings been going so far in America, in the U.S.?
I mean, they've been great. I mean, the feedback and the response that we've gotten was incredible. I was in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago for Bring America Back to Life. I was in Louisiana last weekend for another screening. Be in New York next week for another screening. So, they're going great. So I appreciate everybody that is putting them on, supporting us, and watching the film.
Roe versus Wade, the truth comes out. So why, in your mind, is this story deserving of a feature film? What was the inspiration behind it? Can you take us back to the beginning days? Because this probably wasn't an easy decision for you.
Sure. I mean, to answer your question, I mean, why is it deserving of a film? I mean, it's the most famous court case in American history. I think the question is, why has it never been made into a film before? And what I like to say is Roe v. Wade is the case that everybody knows about, but everyone's heard about, but nobody knows about. Right. So I mean, it's the most famous court case in American history. I think that, it's interesting. No one's ever heard of it. Everyone's already heard of it, but no one's, really knows anything about it. And when I was first brought the idea to do Roe, literally my first reaction is, why would I do a pro-choice movie? And why that reaction? Because, I think when Americans hear of Roe v. Wade, their immediate reaction is, well, that's the case that legalized abortion in America. And so that was my first reaction. But, when you dig into it and you learn the history and the manipulation, the conspiracy that led to the decision, it almost comes across like in an Oliver Stone JFK movie. And so for me as a filmmaker, I felt it would also be entertaining.
It was really that was what I took from it. This really was a conspiracy, and it still is to this day. So much has been hidden. You played the character abortionist Bernard Nathanson. Can you tell us, as somebody who I mean, looks like you just researched the role so incredibly well, what was it like playing his character, and what kind of pearls of wisdom did you find as you researched his life before his conversion, if you will, and after?
I mean, it was an incredible experience. I mean, I think, to play Bernard, for your audience who doesn't know, Bernard was not only the biggest abortionist in American history, he went through a conversion as well. And to play a character that goes through such a traumatic conversion, such a traumatic arc within his life, is incredibly challenging, hard, difficult, and exciting, because you're getting to go. And if you can do it well and do it right, you can really sort of maybe prove yourself as an actor. And I think that was maybe one of the things that I was trying to accomplish, with Bernard, which I really enjoyed. Researching him was incredibly interesting. He was a funny guy. He was verbose, intellectual, full of humor, an incredible writer, incredible vocabulary, and an incredible sense of humor. And I just think Bernard was just sort of a character in his own right. And it was just interesting to see how and why he made the decisions he did. I think one of the challenging things is when you get to know a character so well, and you're trying to write them and in the best light potentially you possibly can. I think the challenges is when you begin to find the flaws in them and the hypocrisies, because everybody, everybody has flaws and everybody has hypocrisy. But when you're trying to tell a story, you can't always, some flaws yes, and some flaws no, and some hypocrisy yes, and try to subtly let it go through, so the audience can still root for that character. And so those are sort of interesting tidbits that we sort of let through towards the end. But anyway, I digress.
So, Nick, the Roe versus Wade decision in the USA has been often compared to our Dr. Henry Morgenthaler decision of 1988 in Canada, which brought about abortion on demand in our country. As a movement, Campaign Life Coalition brought Bernard Nathanson up here after his conversion, if you will, to speak and to engage the discussion here. And I want to play a clip for you, if you'll bear with me, of him on the Tom Charrington show. It's kind of a superstation at the time, CHCH-TV, and you can have a listen to him actually having a debate with the infamous Henry Morgenthaler.
Do you think that any woman who gets pregnant and does not want to continue that pregnancy, do you believe now that abortions should be completely illegal? Or do you see that there are any reasons that some women might still, in your opinion, obtain an abortion by a doctor rather than a quack or as a result of a coat hanger or whatever else?
Now, these are legitimate questions. Let me respond to them.
Right.
Abortion. Let me turn to the question of rape. You see, the problem here is we have a child, a fetus, or a person created under circumstances which are tragic, no question. But those circumstances should not stigmatize the life of that child. I put it to you that not every one of us were conceived in the most ideal circumstances, and in fact, many of us, unknowingly or not, may in fact have been conceived in an act of rape. Yet, that should never stigmatize our lives. We were innocent. Why should we be destroyed?
Let
me finish. Now, third thing. Let me finish, please. Wait a minute. Let me finish, please. Just a minute. The third problem is that unwanted pregnancy, there is no question, is a compelling, difficult social issue. But it demands social solutions. It is as inappropriate to cope with this particular social problem with a destructive surgical means as it would be to treat violent criminals with lobotomy or rapists with surgical castration. Those are social problems as well. We do not treat them with violent surgical means. Should we still return to the 19th century practice of treating chronic masturbators with vasectomy, as was done?
Do you propose
now, wait a minute, let me finish, please. Now, wait a minute, let me finish, please. Vexing social problems call for imaginative and humane social responses, not surgical holocausts.
There we go. Your thoughts on watching that character you played so well?
Yeah, I mean, that was Byrne. I mean, he's brilliant. He's very smart, and very good debater. I think some of the challenges with Byrne, I think. I can't get into it all, but I think Byrne knew what he was doing a lot of the time throughout most of his life.
Chief Justice Warren Burger, played by John Voight. I mean, such a well-known actor. You could see he really got into the character, and you felt the struggle within him. And so many times, if you want to give anything away from the movie, can you speak to your working with him? What was it like working with John Voight, such a powerful actor?
Yeah, John, I was thoroughly impressed. John came to the character fully researched. I mean, he showed up on set, and I had read 40 books, and I had put a lot of research and time into all these characters, and I knew everything about them. And John came and said, "Hey Nick, did you know that Warren Berger did this?" And Warren Berger did. I said, "Yes, John." I said, "Yes, John, I know he did this." But it was interesting that John had done all this research, and he cared so much about the character before he showed up to work, and a sort of sense of professionalism that John brought to the role, and even to the point where he says, "Well, Warren Berger was a stocky guy, and maybe we can make me look a little more stocky to fit." And I'm thinking, no one in America knows what Warren Berger looks like, and so no one's gonna. But if John really wants to get into that much into character, let's go for it. And so, this was so important to him to make sure that he portrayed this character that he played to the utmost truth of the character. And with that professionalism, was really quite impressive. Working with John in that aspect.
You really had an all-star cast, and I think for the pro-life movement in Canada, so often we aren't able to kind of celebrate the challenge, if you will, and a film like this kind of allows us to celebrate the challenges, the day in, day out, that idea that we're on the front lines or creating films. When you see a movie like this, it really empowers and strengthens that resolve. And I think one of the people that really did that for me in the film was Stacey Dash, who plays Dr. Mildred Jefferson. One of the things I found really interesting, and something I never thought about before, but here you have this first African American woman to graduate from Harvard, and I've never heard that as one of her. I mean, you'd think that would be celebrated. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in American history, it's very interesting, because of all the racism we've had in this country, and also all because of the women's movement and the fact that we've had inequality in this country for so long, that any time a woman has broken what they call the glass ceiling, or the African American has broken barriers in this country, they are revered, they are celebrated, they are talked about. No one in the world has ever heard of Dr. Mildred Jefferson. And so the question is, this is somebody who was a woman in the 50s or in the 40s, in the 50s and 40s, a Black woman who was the first Black woman to graduate Harvard Medical School. An incredible accomplishment, not only the accomplishments there, but also at Boston University. And no one talks about her. And I think the reason it is because she was the second president of the National Right to Life. She was hugely instrumental in the pro-life movement. And I think if she was instrumental in the women's movement, you would have heard of her. And so I think that is, and she was opposed to, she was sort of anti the feminist movement and all of that. And so I think because of that, no one talked about her. She wasn't revered. And she really was an incredible woman, not only for all the barriers that she broke, but also the way she did it. Which you'll see in the movie, her attitude towards that, I think not only was remnant of her, but maybe potentially remnant of the times, but also remnant of her attitudes of how to build future for generations for young African American women to come. And I think that was tremendous for Dr. Mildred Jefferson to do and accomplish. But it's really sad. But hopefully this movie will bring a little bit of her to light.
I want to speak to you about another favorite character, Joey Lawrence, who plays Robert Byrne, university professor. No spoilers here, but when he does speak to the university students, it really, in the classroom, it really provides an apologetic for I felt for the audience watching to kind of learn along with the students and those aha moments. So can you speak to that? Can you speak to that particular aspect as a director, as a filmmaker, in wanting to kind of get those points across in a way that was really challenging?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want to be, a faith-based hit you over the head, you have to be pro-life or you're the devil kind of movie. And so, we really told a movie from the perspective of the pro-choicers. I mean, they're the protagonists, they're the leads. We follow their journey throughout the story. On the opposite side, you have the pro-lifers sort of trying to battle against them and try to, make this sort of a balanced type movie. And, you do, sort of outlay the arguments of the pro-choicers throughout, because their mission is to get this change and reason why. And so we had to balance the discussion, and we needed to find an avenue, and not necessarily an avenue, but I thought it was really a good tactic to potentially utilize, since the youth of the time was extremely liberal and pro-choice, for them to be asking those questions. And because it's Roe v. Wade, what better place to be asking those questions but in law school, and dealing with a legal case. And Professor Robert Byrne, who was a Fordham lawyer and a Fordham teacher for Fordham Law School, was extremely involved in the pro-life movement. And so I think he was the perfect tool to be able to utilize, to be able to have those discussions with those students, to be able to bring out your point, right? I mean, it was those classroom discussions where students feel one way and the teacher feels another. It's an open discussion. You're not lambasting one person or another, and you want to have the questions and answers without being dictatorial or controlling or saying this, it has to be this way or another. It's and that was the whole point. The whole goal was to change hearts and minds. And I think if you beat somebody down with your point, it's not going to happen.
I guess the sad part is now, and I know it's happening in America, it's certainly happening in Canada, those discussions are not happening. They're being canceled. In fact, as early as today, our McMaster University nearby in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, was canceled. No more pro-life group canceled. So these discussions are becoming more and more seldom. And can you speak to that cancel culture as a director, as somebody who's very much, no doubt, experienced a bit of that in your own creation and making of the film and the challenges with it?
Yeah, I mean, we started to face this, while making the movie, 3-4 years ago. We tried to raise money from crowdfunding, and essentially Facebook banned us from raising money because it was a pro-life movie. And, we were all over the news, and it ended up on Fox News. And I think that was the reason we had gotten so much media attention for doing that. It was really sort of starting to take off back then. And now it's really come full circle to the point where, like, I'm even nervous, to say, back then I was like, oh, there's no way if I get out there and I raise my fist, the media will back me up. And Facebook then lifted our ban and we were fine. It's gotten, I think, to the point where I think Twitter was able to cancel the president of the United States. I think that has made social media and these outlets so emboldened that they won't turn you back on if they cancel you. You're just gone and you're just done. And I think that's scary. And I think that you're heading down the wrong path. And I think what the social media companies are doing is essentially a precursor to more violence in this country. And their behavior is what's going to incite violence. Canceling people and not giving people a voice. And when people can't talk, what are they going to do? Right? If you can't talk and you can't verbalize and you can't talk, like you result to violence, and that's not what we want in our society. And so I think removing the microphone from people who want to have a voice is just really going down a dangerous path in our country.
So I'm going to throw a couple of lines at you from the movie that jumped out at me watching. And I want you to respond as best as you can as to why you think these are powerful lines from the film. The first is, perhaps this is beyond the authority of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think, that was a time where they were, the justices were sitting there debating upon, how they were going to make the decision, who was going to decide. And it was about a life, right? Or they couldn't decide, was it about a life? Was it not about a life? And it was about a life. Maybe it's beyond our authority, and that meaning it's the authority of God.
If you keep repeating the same lie, people will begin to believe it.
I mean, that's essentially what everybody does, right? I mean, this is, if you, in the media, you want to say, or anybody, you say something over and over and over and over again, essentially becomes the truth. I mean, isn't that the way we all behave when we lie? When we lie, we just keep on denying until somebody says, okay, you're right. I mean, and that's sort of the implications of it all.
I noticed on your website you have a fairly extensive fact check with amazing resources. Can you speak to that and why that's so important?
Yeah, we were getting, before the movie came out, we were getting criticized, even by our own community, right? I mean, actually, because most of the people who had seen the film really were the pro-life community, and most of them were criticizing our film, saying we made up stuff. Nick, you're only 45. You weren't around in the 70s when I was around, and this didn't happen, and that, and we got lambasted. And so everything that we put in here was 100% accurate. And so we put together a fact sheet. Nobody wanted to believe us. So we put together a fact sheet. We sourced it with, in not Wikipedia, with actual sources of, when people see a scene, no way that didn't happen, or they made this up, and we sourced it. And we put a fact sheet on our website, RoeVWadeMovie.com, fact check. And, for those who don't believe the scenes they see, can go to it and check it out.
So one final question. What, if there's one message you hope people will leave from the film with, what would it be?
Life begins at conception.
Couldn't be clearer than that. Couldn't be clearer than that. Nick Loeb, thanks so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to the premiere coming up for all of us pro-life Canadians and those who might stumble upon it and have come across a different point of view. Thank you very much for all of the work that you have put into this film on behalf of all of us who truly believe life does begin at conception.